We want to welcome everyone back to Changing Narratives. Checking in, so much has been going on here lately. Brother Brown and I have been, of course, keeping up with the latest events, but just haven't really checked in as regularly as we would like. But want to try to rectify that today. Like I
Yeah,
said, want to thank everyone once again for tuning in with us as we have transitioned from KKFI. We are still definitely committed to bringing about information that will hopefully bring about change in a positive way and so many areas that we want to try to affect in our community. And we're not just trying to create content for the sake of creating content. We want to create conversation that will lead to action. And, Brown and I have been doing this since the 90s, with Verbal
yeah,
Attack, putting out a community newsletter. And the commitment has always been to grassroots community organization and action. And that's what we're going to continue to do. So,
absolutely. And again, happy Black History Month for
yes.
those that compartmentalize their thoughts and research to just February. But again, it's still significant because Carter G. Woodson recognized that, we do need to celebrate our history. And this is the thing. A lot of people with when we talk about Black history, we tend to start it with our lowest point, which is slavery and the slave
Yes.
trade, and discounting everything that was taking place before. And so, just a real small connection. When you get somebody like J.A. Rogers, that is just a giant in history, and we name a school after him here in Kansas City.
City, right.
So we have that thought that we would name or one of our educational institutions after a giant such as him. But the idea of the practice of that throughout the entire school and learning process was something that was received very tepidly. When we're talking about African-centered education, it was a struggle to get that instituted here in Kansas City.
Right. And it just feels, I don't want to straight say strange, but in 2026, how much more important
Right.
Black History Month feels to me. That we're at a time when we've watched and witnessed an all-out assault on public education for the last 20, 30 years.
Right.
But in these last 4 to 5 years with the attacks on DEI and just the all-out attempt to erase history, and I was one of those people that, like you said, it was of the mindset that not necessarily you should just, it's not just about focusing on Black history during February. We should be doing it all year. And each year, I don't necessarily say it would lose significance to me in terms of focusing on Black history and even talking about Carter G. Woodson and the history of it starting with Black History Week. It was starting to lose significance to me. But now I recognize it kind of puts you in the mindset of what Carter G. Woodson was thinking as to why he created it. And it's unfortunate that we've worked backwards in 2026 to where it is that much more important that we focus on these things because the assault is real.
Yeah.
They are attempting to erase, not just our accomplishments, but then change and reframe our very existence here, in this country. And so,
Right.
this February definitely resonates a little bit more. That was a long way of saying that.
Absolutely. Well, no, that's good. But again, and this is why we can't just depend on education coming from one location or the other. We'll use the sports analogy, Super Bowl. I know people that, like a friend of mine, his daughter really loves the game of basketball. And so, in that respect, they've gotten their personal trainers to help get her better at the game, and
Right.
it's showing. When they play, even when they're losing effort, if they got 30 points, she scored 24.
Right. Right. But the investment is paying off.
And you can clearly see it between the difference between the kids that are not investing like that. And so, and this is not lost on this particular family because they do this with the education piece as well. But I just use that sports analogy where you seek to get the enhancement in the places where you see value or you see interest.
Right.
We're not doing that same thing as it relates to the history and to the science and to the other subjects that we really need to consider. And for us to start thinking about our child's education as an individual, not in the scheme of what the school is delivering. Because like ultimately what I see from a lot of young people, they're not looking at this education piece as something that's really sharpening my tool, my mind, that's going to prepare me to deal with the world. It is just some place that I go on a daily basis, not like prep.
It's more of a means to an end, but
I don't
not
even
really
see it.
respecting the journey and really what you're supposed to
I
be
don't
getting
even know
out
that
of.
they think that it's a means to an end. I just go to school.
Right. That's just like what you have to do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then I graduate. But nothing about this process is making me look at it like, well, if I pay attention to science like this, then when I go get ready to. If I pay attention to math like this, then when I get ready to.
Yeah.
If I pay attention to public speaking, then when I get ready to. There's no through line for our young people to really see themselves functioning in the future with the education that they're receiving.
Yeah, and I imagine it is tough because once again, what is this society telling you or teaching you the value of education is? I mean, it's not, intellect. There's like when we talk about all the time, just an assault on intellectualism. I can remember when Barack Obama was in office and he was talking about making community college free. And one of the senators at the time from Pennsylvania, I can't remember, he ended up being coming on CNN all the time. But he was like, just how arrogant is he to, want everyone to be college educated? It's just that is just an arrogant way of thinking. And it was just like, really? Like, this is where we're at in our discourse where education is somehow wrong.
Yeah. And then not even, you didn't say go to Harvard.
And then there was that part. Yeah.
You said community college.
Yes.
And for a lot of people that didn't pay attention in high school, and I don't mean that in a disparaging way, it took you getting out into the workforce to realize, wow, I should have paid attention more. And now I do need to supplement my public speaking skills, my basic math skills, because I'm looking at a construction site or something that just really makes me have to know fractions.
Well, and I think also, I mean, and I'm speaking very specifically to Kansas City, and when we talk about a place like Penn Valley, and what it meant to the community in the 70s, 60s, and 70s, and you had
80s and 90s.
right, it's some real educational giants on that campus. And, the idea that, once again, it wasn't the students that didn't see the value in that. It was those corporations, those politicians, and those who are actually ultimately in control of the resources in the community that have, deemed it, not important. And so,
Yeah, absolutely.
and so that's the thing where it's that much more important, like you said, as individuals and parents, we take more responsibility and accountability for our kids' education and for those kids in our community for their education.
Yeah. Well, again, and it's, I can think of a couple of young people that I worked with over a few years, and they just recently graduated. And I could see one, where they were ready, poised, both had about the same skills as it relates to art. Both had about the same home living situation where it wasn't ideal,
Right.
but they were different, but it was still some, and I watched one deal with that really well on the outside and kept churning through and taking good, constructive criticism, and the other one not do so well with that. But on the backside of graduating, one was offered a job based off of their skills and their ability to articulate themselves, and the other one kind of struggled in that respect.
Yeah.
And so, again, if you're not being engaged, and that was the difference. One person was more engaged in taking in the information.
Right.
They both had the same opportunity, you know, and presented with them in the same environments, but one was more ready to engage the process and take the constructive criticism. And I think that there's a lot of activities that our young people are doing, but they're not engaging in the process and really like, you know, let me go ahead and fire my representative and just really like lock in here today and see what these folks are saying versus like, let me just hear enough to check the box off.
Right, right.
And again, that changes that dynamic.
And so for you, you know, as an educator, and like you said, coming in contact with the amount of young people that you come into contact with, and I imagine, you know, you see a varying degree of, you know, parental involvement and such, and, you know, a somewhat diverse group of probably even economic situations. But in terms of that engagement, what would you say from a parental standpoint? You know, one or two things that you know parents can do to kind of you know turn that on a little bit, if you will,
Yeah.
and then
Well,
you know, and then like you said, and then the expectations for these students at different levels, because like you said, it's one thing when we're talking about your elementary age learner versus your middle school learner and then your high school learner, and kind of
absolutely.
what that looks like.
Well, again, the first thing is that we now have to use report cards differently. We have to look at the report card, and then we have to know our child. And we have to know that if your child is getting an A in algebra, but you know your child is not good at math,
Right.
now, again, are they a good art student and that's the interest? They're a good writing student and that's the interest, or public speaking, political science? Then okay.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But if your child has an engineering interest and they're getting an A in math and then they can't defend that A, then now that's a problem.
Right.
Now, obviously, if they're not, you know, they're getting D's and even C's, you know, low C's, that is. You're using that as a readout for what you need to adjust in, and especially if you say that that's something that you want to do in life. Now you have to find the outside resources if there's not enough taking place in the school. That's the conversation that you have.
Right.
Hey, my son wants to be, my daughter wants to be, and they need this aid. They need to know.
Right.
And if it's not enough here, it's fine, but we'll find resources. And that's what the teacher should be saying as well. Hey, I see that your child has a propensity for engineering, and so, but I see that, you know, I mean, he could do it, but he has to buckle down in math. Now, the way our school and our class is structured, I can only give him up to here.
Right.
But here's some other resources that you can support these ideas. And so also, you know, again, finding something for them to do practically with whatever it is that they say that they're doing. Again, if they say they want to be a vet, do you guys have an animal in the house?
Right, right.
Just, you know,
Yeah,
start
little
off
things.
simple. You know, nobody's telling you to go out and get a dog and start doing all of that. But
Experimenting on them.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, don't experiment, but just being responsible for it. And so now you can know what a happy, healthy dog looks like versus a sick and not, you know, well dog. Just basics. But, you know, again, we have to really start driving their interests. And you said, again, the biggest thing that I see in young people that excel versus those that don't is the parent engagement. Because they're willing to be involved and be an advocate for their learner. They're able to engage in a lot of different opportunities, and they know they're in the know. They're seeing, you know, they're in the library looking at what's available. They're talking with the teachers, and then they're making sure that they're involved in some type of extracurriculars. Again, it used to be just that, you know, things were locked in, that if you did these things, then you were guaranteed a position to go to college and you can get certain scholarship money.
Right.
But now all of that is not locked in. And what else is not locked in is that our young people coming from these large school districts are going to have the basic skills to be successful in college.
Yeah.
Particularly with math. You look at the greater Kansas City school districts here. There's 3 years. Well, Missouri requires 3 years of math. And so typically you take algebra, geometry, algebra 2. So by your senior year, you're not taking math. But then you have this big thing called the ACT test, the SAT test, that you have to do. Normally you start at the beginning of the year, but then you do it another time, twice at least, before FAFSA hits, which is around this time.
Right.
But now you haven't had math possibly in a year.
Right.
And so, but then you go onto the college campus and then you take college algebra, which is only the same thing as algebra 2. But nobody's making that connection or saying in algebra 2, like, hey, you plan on going to college. This is the same. This is the exact same thing. Take this with you.
Right.
Don't just throw it out the window when you leave this class. And so again, for all of our graduating seniors and our rising juniors, lock in on that algebra 2. It can make a difference, because I'm knowing people that have been at the threshold of graduating, and that college algebra class was stressing them out and keeping them there. Now back again?
Right.
We gonna let you walk, but come back and see us on that algebra.
Yeah, as someone who took college algebra, I think 3 times. Yeah, I did. I passed it on that 3rd try. I definitely understand that pain. But once again, just continuing that conversation around education and preparing this next generation for what's to come. And there's so many things that when you're educated and confident, you don't carry around the same kind of fear. And like we were talking off air about AI. And, so many are so fearful and worried and are like, it's going to take everyone's jobs and all of these types of things. And it's like, of course, that's what corporations are going to try to do. But, ultimately, those machines have to be programmed and that type of thing. And so whether or not you look at it as an opportunity or a problem usually is based on how well you've been educated.
Absolutely. And again, and that's one of those things that we got a lot of people going to school and they don't necessarily have a mission. So they're not really building skills.
Right.
You have a resume and you've been able to go do some things, but you haven't really increased your value as what you can bring to the table. So again, as much as AI is taking over a lot of environments, if you truly have skills that are valued, it's going to be hard for them to get you out of the way.
Right.
And if you have actual skills, then you'll be able to pivot. But again, we have to be looking at that as all of us, whatever you're doing, you have to have something else in your toolbox.
And that's the other part, the last part. In preparing for the future, the last thing you have to understand is you have to be in a position to continually evolve. Because this idea that you're going to get into one job and stay there for 30 years, that's done.
A thing of the past.
Yeah, absolutely. And so speaking of AI, we talk about this administration and the president. We're going to jump into a clip over the controversial meme that the president posted, and then we're going to have a little bit of conversation around that.
South Carolina lawmakers are reacting to a social media post by President Trump. The video includes former President Barack Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama. Now, the clip posted on True Social late last night appears to be an AI-generated parody of the Disney movie The Lion King. Now, before it was deleted, South Carolina Senator Tim Scott posted on X saying in part, quote, "Praying this is fake because it's the most racist thing I've seen out of this White House," end quote. Democratic Congressman Jim Clyburn also responded, posting in part, quote, "This kind of bigotry, even if deleted, sets us back as a country, betrays our values, and only sows more rhetoric of hatred and ridicule," end quote. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt initially rejected the criticism as, quote, "fake outrage," but again, the post was deleted. The White House says a staffer was responsible.
All righty, and so when we talk about this administration and the president, and we're going to deal with Tim Scott being offended, but people talking about they want him to apologize or to expect an apology. It's like, come on, this
Right.
was not accidental. Even I think they probably factored in the amount of outrage, and that's why they let it sit for like 12 hours so the message could get out to the folks that they wanted to get it out to. But this idea of expecting him to apologize or to feel some sort of remorse for it is laughable.
Well, again, and my thing is that especially with people like Tim Scott,
Uh,
and it seemed like they were just readily they was the person to go to, that he was so outraged,
Yeah.
and he of all people have zero room to be outraged based off of how you were kissing the ring and have
yes.
always kissed the ring of the Republican Party, to the detriment of people that look like you. You have zero right to be outraged. How is this a bridge too far for you?
Right, and like you
Growing up
said,
in South Carolina.
well, and in his specific wording, I pray this is wrong or a joke, and that I pray it was AI, and that this is the most racist thing to come out from this administration, and for even him using the word racism, in what context is he using it?
Right.
Because he's made it very clear that he doesn't feel like racism is a problem, that America is a racist country. And so I wouldn't be interested to hear what he has to say about that. But it's just, it's always funny when, like you said, people like him reach their final,
Straw.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, come on.
Well, again, there's been a constant assault, since the beginning of this administration on every institution of this republic.
Absolutely.
And again, so here we have this racist meme that he's portraying at the very beginning of Black History Month,
Yes.
with two of the people that are held in high esteem, not only within the Black community, but within the international community in general.
Yes.
Again, when we talk about the difference in Republican and Democrat, he was one of those people, again, just with him eulogizing John McCain, and John McCain saying that this is the guy that I want. Out of
Yes.
all the people that I've worked with over all my career, all the Republicans, good and great people that they are,
Right.
I chose the Democratic president that was my opposition versus this rhetoric that we're getting now.
Yeah, and like you said, and that's powerful. And so, just like you said, just the hypocrisy of this being the bridge too far, and it's just like, it was very intentional. It's
Yes.
a continuation of his assaults of the Obamas. Always, he's reposted all of these crazy conspiracies about them. Let us not forget that, they posted their address.
Doxed him, yeah.
Yeah, doxed them. And so, like you said, this is just a continuation of his obsession with the Obamas, and every attempt that he does, and every opportunity that he gets to kind of, sully their name or try to pull them down to their level. That's what he does.
Yeah, and I think it really eats at him at the fact that he is so much more presidential and was so much more presidential than he was on any day, and it still is liked.
Well, and still respected. I'm
Yeah.
like when you talk about the response to J.D. Vance on the international stage, where he was booed heavily. When you look at every event, that a public event that I've seen Obama at, he's received love.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, that eats at someone like him.
Right. Well, and going back to, after this piece was out for 12 hours, First they stood on it. Well, he's the king of the jungle,
Yes.
and he's just showing. Well, if shouldn't that be Nancy and, at worst, Harris, Hakeem Jeffries.
Yeah.
You're talking about one person that had nothing to do with politics.
Exactly.
And the other person that's been out of office for 8 years.
Absolutely.
And so at bare minimum, you should have had at least people
that are currently elected. Yeah, exactly. Current elected officials. Right.
He didn't get involved in politics the way that you did. He only does it during the election cycle to support people that are on the ticket.
Right.
Other than that, he's not out here running down everything that you're doing, which he could very well be doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so, again, that's where that the idea of this was really meant from a disingenuous and a hurtful place and a racist place. And the last piece with that is, maybe not the last piece, but the next piece is that then they threw a junior staffer under the bus at the end of this thing.
Yes.
So first you stood on it. This is him showing his power. And then after nobody was buying it, and then even the people that you normally get to agree with you, Fox News and the like, said, no, this is not right. Then you say, well, it was junior, it was a staffer.
I'm not apologizing.
It was just a staffer, though.
I didn't make a mistake. You know what I'm saying? I'm not apologizing. And so, like you said, it was, personal, very, very personal, very, very racist. And unfortunately, kind of par for the course. And like you said, you're going to have a few folks that will step up and, feign this outrage like Tim Scott. But then tomorrow we'll move on to something else. And
that's equally outrageous with this administration.
Yes, absolutely. And so, like you said, it's just unfortunate that during the first week of Black History Month, that this is what we end up having to talk about.
Right.
But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, and I was just going to again say, and this is not President Trump and him and his ideas alone.
No.
There's a group of people that have this mindset, and so this is being supported throughout. Because no one at any level of folk that are around him said this is a bad idea.
Right. Oh, no.
We should pull back. There's no conscience that says that. And then there's also this constituency of Americans that believe that this type of junior high school, I won't even call it sophomoric, behavior is okay, because if we found out that one of our children was harassing one of their classmates in this fashion,
right, I
would be appalled as a parent and metaphorically would want blood from these folks, from the school, from everybody that allowed for this to take place if it wasn't nipped in the bud.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, once again, it's going to be interesting to me to see the way in which the Democrats or opposition will be able to galvanize folks. Because once again, this is an upsetting issue. Like you said, we've talked about it, but these aren't the types of things that move the needle relative to action.
Yeah.
And so that's the other part of the conversation for me around what it's going to look like around election time, and how folks are being prepared for that. And that's the conversation that I really want to move into is, we can't wait until the midterms to start talking about what we're voting for during the midterm.
Well, again, and it's not that the Democrats have done anything to endear us or make us feel any more excited about their leadership in this time.
Absolutely.
It's that the opposition has done so bad.
Yes.
And dropped the ball in so many situations where they could have ran it into the end zone.
Yes.
That you have no choice but to take this, Republican light, that's death light, that's, I don't know. It's still not proper.
No.
And that's the thing that the Republicans the Democrats are missing, that you have all of this opportunity to really build and coalesce around real issues that are concerning people.
Yeah.
But you're not hitting the ground running.
No, not at all.
You're still popping up every now and then YouTube ads asking me for money.
Right.
Elizabeth Warren and the likes, but
And especially here in the state of Missouri, where the Republicans are running roughshod. We having budget shortfalls. Like you said, when we talk about in so many rural communities where they're on full 4-day school weeks, where they don't have hospitals, and then you have a governor talking about removing state income tax without any sort of plan to replace that revenue and what that looks like. And so, once again, where are our state representatives? Where are
well,
our local representatives
well, I'll tell you
having these
where
conversations?
the Missouri state representatives are. They're in the process of trying to get the 10 Commandments placed into the classroom. And so I find it very interesting that you can have this person that's supposed to be not only the leader of your party, but the leader of the free world, the leader of this nation, that does everything but abide by these things.
Yes.
That has covered up sexual assault crimes against children and other folks. But now you'll come and lay on us with the 10 Commandments, but you're not going to lay them on him.
Right, right. Well, once again, just another example of this hypocrisy.
Right.
And so, we don't want to just put this information out here for the sake of putting information out here, because once again, there's all sorts of content creators out here. But how do we move this from just conversation to action? And,
Meet Jay on 12th Street.
Exactly.
Down with them.
But that's what we have to do. Is
Yeah.
we definitely have to begin to educate ourselves and figure out that common ground and ways in which we can build grassroots organization and community and start to address some of these issues.
Absolutely.
So, but we definitely are going to be more intentional in recording and getting this information out here. Appreciate you guys being patient with us, sticking with us, and hanging with changing narratives, and we'll be back next week.